Today we're going to learn about how to add the carousel, the slick carousel to your theme, your WordPress theme. So basically we would like to loop through a bunch of posts and then create a carousel using the slick carousel. Now there are a couple of ways to do it. The first way is actually by installing this package. Now since we are using Webpack, we can directly install this package called Slick Carousel and then just follow the documentation to use the carousel. That's one way of doing it. Another way would be to follow the documentation they have here. You can download it. So let's download it. I'm going with this way right now, but you can choose to go with the second approach also. Let's go with this one. Okay, so what we need basically is if we go back to our code and if we go to library under CSS, so there are a couple of things we need basically. We need the slick.css, we need slick.min.js, and then we also need the slick theme.css. Let's go ahead and grab these. So I'm gonna get, if you go inside here, you will get slick.theme.css, you need that, and then you want slick.css. So let me copy that. I'm going to put that inside of my CSS directory. So you should ideally put your libraries over here. We also need the slick.js, so I'll copy that and I'll put that inside of the JS folder under library. Okay. And next thing we want to do is basically enqueue these files, because by just putting them inside of the folder, WordPress will not know about them, right? So we need to enqueue them. So how do we enqueue them? Okay, so we'll go to the file where we want to enqueue it. So currently we are doing it inside of the assets. We have already registered the styles for Bootstrap, for main.css. So this is where we're going to register it for the slick slider as well. So I'm just going to copy this code and then I'll explain to you what that means. I'll copy it, I'll paste it over here. So basically we want to include the slick CSS. So we are putting the name, the handle, then we are giving it a path, the build folder, because remember that we are using the Webpack, right? So if I go to assets and if I run the Webpack npm run dev, what we're doing basically is, if you check the Webpack config, we are going ahead and outputting the library from the library directory to the build directory under library. So once you run the Webpack, it's going to take the CSS from the library directory and is going to put that inside of the build directory. So now if you check inside of library, because that's what we are saying, library, we have the CSS. Oops, still don't have it. Oh, now we have, sorry. Yeah, you have got slick.css and we've got slick-theme.css, and then we also have the slick.js. So we've got these three files, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and that's what we need. So we want to give this path to, and we want to let WordPress know that please enqueue these files, include these files. So that's what we're doing over here. For the CSS, we use the register style. And then this constant is going to give me the path up until the slick.css, and this one we are getting the slick-theme.css, and then it's checking the dependency if it should be included after any particular CSS file. So for this one we have kept the dependency as empty, but for the second one we are saying that include this theme.css after this file is included. That's why we're passing the handle here. We are setting the version number to false because obviously this won't be really updated, and then we are putting the media to all. We could use the CDN URL also directly, but I believe that we should have a local copy in case if the file is moved from CDN, or tomorrow if they decide to remove it, at least we have a local copy. So I feel that it's important to keep a local copy of that. Okay, so we have this available locally, and we also need to enqueue it. So what we can do is we can say slick CSS over here, and then we can also enqueue the slick theme .css. Okay, so this way we've got our slick.css and slick-theme.css file included. Now if you want to test it that's actually happened, we can go on to the home page, the front page, and then we check the page source, and then if you search it, so we've got the slick-theme.css. If you click on it, you can see you've got all of the CSS file there, and then we've got the slick.css as well included. So it's always good to test it that it's included or not. Okay, now so you've got the CSS included, and if we go back to our step, so this is done. We've got the CSS file included. We also need to include the enqueue the slick.js, right? So let's do that. Let's get the slick.min.js instead of slick.js. So we'll go back to our source and JS, library JS, and remove the slick.js. Change it to slick.min.js. If you take a look at it, when we do npm run prod, what this is going to do is in the production mode is going to generate a minified file. So if you check the build folder, you can see that this has been minified, and even the slick-theme.css has also been minified as well, which is good for performance. Okay, so now we need to enqueue the JavaScript file, the slick.min.js. So for that, so this is where we are registering our scripts, the JavaScript file. So I'll put that here, and we are just saying the handle name is slick-js, and then we are also giving the path up until the slick.min.js. So if you take a look inside of the build directory, we have the library, and then we have the JS. So library, so this is the path up until the library, then JS, and then slick.min.js. So that's the path we're giving, and we're setting the dependency as jQuery. Now we don't really need to include the jQuery file because WordPress already has that available for us. All we have to do is just pass this as a dependency. Okay, so we are good that way. All we have to do now is just enqueue it. So I'm just going to copy paste, and same way we did for styles, we just need to enqueue the JavaScript as well. So just put the handle name here. So we register it on the top, and then we enqueue it over here. That's all the work for registering and enqueuing the styles and scripts. So we have registered and enqueued the slick.css, slick-theme.css, and also the slick.min.js. Okay, so now if you go back and test it, make sure you test it, okay, and refresh, check the page source, and look for slick.min. Oops, it's not slick, it's slick actually, slick.min. So you can see that this file is already included. If you click on that, you can see it's already minified, which is great. So we've got what we're looking for. The next thing we want to do is basically add the template for the carousel. So what I'm going to do is I'll create a template. Let's say you want to go ahead and show a bunch of posts. For now, I'll just start with the static HTML and then add the post later. Okay, so inside of the components, I'm going to say I'm going to create a file inside of the template paths, and I'll name it as posts carousel.php. Okay, and here posts carousel, add package Aquila. Aquila is the name of my theme, and then oops. Now if you take a look at the documentation, how do you actually use it? Yeah, so this is the content basically that we can loop through. So I'll paste it here. So what this means is that if you would like to have 3 items in your carousel, you just create 3 divs, and whatever you put inside of it, you can even put h1 and then whatever, and then you can put p tag. Like you can put as much content as you want. It doesn't really matter. Okay, you can put p tag, you can put another div here. All it matters is it's going to look for that parent class, and it's going to look for the direct child. So which are the direct child of these? It will consider that as a single slide. It doesn't care what you put inside of that div, right? So what it's going to look for is that, okay, this is my parent, this is the class. What's the direct child? So direct child is this one, it's this one, it's this one. So it will create this as first slide. So this will be your first slide. This will be the second slide. And this will be the third slide. Oops, third slide. Okay, so that's what it's going to consider. And since you've created a template here, WordPress doesn't know about it, right? By just creating a file, it's not going to know that it exists. So you need to include that. Now, where do you want to include it? That's the question you need to ask to yourself. Where do I want this carousel? So for example, I would like to have it on the home page. Okay, so I've already created a front page. So all I'm going to do is just go over here, and then down at the bottom, I'm just going to use this get template path function, and I'm going to pass the path up until that file. So where is that file? So I have it inside of template path, then it's inside of components. So I'm going to put components here, and then after that it's post carousel. So I'll put that, and remember, you don't have to put PHP here, you just have to give the name of the file. So this is a WordPress function that already includes that file, right? Now since this front page is actually responsible for getting the content on the home page, all I have to do is just go to the home page, and I should expect to see the content there. So if I refresh it, there you go. Now you can see these are all the headings and stuff that you added. If you take a look, this is your class, this is the first slide, second slide, and third slide, right? Let me get rid of the extra content that we added for now. Just keep it clean, but you get the idea, right? So now if you refresh, you can see that this is the parent, and these are slides: first slide, second slide, and third slide. Now you'll say to me, Imran, it's not really creating these slides. I'm always doing just putting the content there. So how do I create the slide? How do I get this slider working? So for that, you just need to basically initiate the carousel. And for that, if you take a look, it says that you have to call this function basically, okay, which is called slick. And then if you need to pass any settings, you can pass it here. So what we're going to do for that, we'll have to go that into a JavaScript, because it's a JavaScript code. So we'll go to assets, and then we'll go to source JS. This is where we are putting all of the JavaScript. So I'm going to create we'll create a folder and we'll name it as carousel, and inside of it I'll create a file called index.js. Okay, so inside of the index.js I'll create a class, and I'll name it as slick carousel. You can name it whatever you want. I'm just naming it as slick carousel. Okay, and then and also you need to create a function. I'm calling it init, but you can call it whatever you want. And then we can say initiate carousel. So it's another function of JavaScript, and this is where we're going to put our code. So first of all, you have to ask yourself, which carousel do you want? What is your requirement? Now you may have different requirements from the client. Some client would want this type of carousel. Some client would want these three multiple items. Some would want this one. Others would want this one, right? Variable width. Some of them will have adaptive height like this. So you need to ask yourself which is the one that you really want. Okay, so depending on which one you want, you can choose your settings. So let's go with the most simplest one, right, which is this one. And all it's doing is saying that use jQuery and then call this function and put the class name whichever you want to use for your carousel. So I don't need to pass any settings here, so I'll leave that. So all I'm doing is just putting this code over here, and this class basically is going to be your class for that particular template. So this is my class, right? I can rename it. I can say it like post carousel. You can name it whatever you want. Carousel. So that's how it's going to know which is the template or which is the piece of code it needs to turn into a carousel. So all I'm going to do is just replace this here. Make sure you put dot, you put jQuery. Okay, so this $sign won't be available automatically. In order for the $sign to be available, all you have to do is you have to call a self invoking anonymous function. So for that, you create these two round brackets, you put a function inside of it, and then just paste your code here. And you need to pass jQuery. So if you know, jQuery is already available here, like so. So for that, we need to go ahead and pass jQuery, and then you need to put an alias for that. Alias could be your name also. You could put your name, your name also, and directly replace that over here. But as the convention, what people use, we use the $sign that represents jQuery. So I'll just use $sign over here. What this is doing is this taking jQuery and then passing it to this function, and you can have the name of that variable, anything that you want. Okay. Now we've created this function, but we haven't actually called this function. It's just like creating a function but not calling. It doesn't do anything unless you call it, right? So you have to call this function. So inside of a class, when you want to call it, you can use this dot, whatever the class name is, and just call it. Okay, so this takes care of my job. This does the job. However, I need to initialize this class also. So that's why you see that it's grayed out, because we have not initialized this class. You'll put new, and then you'll put Slick Carousel. So that's taken care of. Now the job is half done. Why? Because I have created this file, but WordPress has no knowledge about that this file exists. So same rule applies everywhere. If it's a CSS file you're adding, you need to tell WordPress. If it's a JavaScript file you're adding, you need to tell WordPress. So how do I tell WordPress? So if you remember, we are already including the main.js. If you check over here, yep, main.js is already included. So all I have to do is just import this file inside of main.js. So WEBPACK is going to bundle that file and then output the code of that file inside of main.js, and then automatically will be included. So all I have to do is just import, and then where is it? It's inside of Carousel, right? And you don't have to put index like this. You don't have to put the name of the file. If the name of the file is index, you can just skip it and just keep it like that, and that's it. Am I even running the WEBPACK? No, I'm not. Okay, let me just run WEBPACK. Here we go. It's building. Brilliant. It's done. Yeah, you can change this into constructor, so it's automatically called constructor. Yep. And now it should work. Ideally. It didn't. It is working. Great. Okay, so that's that, but still our carousel is not working. Let's find out why. Let's see if all of our files are being included. So we've got our slick.theme.css, yes. Slick.min.js, it is. Let's check the sequence of this. Slick.min.js. Yep. The reason why it's not working is because it's the order basically. Check the order of the main.js. Where is it being included? So the reason why I did this mistake purposely to show you how does the order of that file being included matters. What's happening here is that main.js is being included first, right? But the slick.main.js is being included after main.js, which means you're calling a function over here for Slick, but Slick hasn't been included until then, because you're already calling it over here, but it doesn't exist yet. It's going to come over here at this point, right? So what you need to do is just need to change the order. So you need to put Slick first and then main.js after that. So how we do it in WordPress is pretty simple. All you have to do is pass the dependency. So you're going to say jQuery, comma, and the name of the handle. So what this is going to do is it's only going to include the main.js file after this file is included. So now if you save it and if you check, you'll notice that the order has changed now, right? We have the slick.main.js first and then the main.js. So So because our file is being included in main.js, when the script reaches here, Slick functions will already be available and it will start working. But earlier it was not working because this Slick function wasn't even available when we are calling it. That was the issue, right? And it's even telling you the error. Can you see? The earlier when we did not we were putting the main.js first, it was giving us an error. But now if you refresh, that error will go off. Let's see the magic. Refresh. You can see that the error has gone now, right? And this is converted into the carousel. How do we ensure it is? If you go to the post carousel, you can see that Slick has added some classes inside of it. And that says Slick initialized Slick slider, right? And you have some buttons, you have your content inside of it. You can see it's added bunch of added bunch of classes for this basically. Okay, now if you want to make it autoplay, there are some of the options available. So you can go to usage, settings, and look for autoplay. So you can pass this property called autoplay and it's going to start autoplaying. Okay, so what you do is you'll pass an object, curly braces. Yep, it is. So there's already an example for that. So what I want is I want autoplay. So I'm going to paste it here, which is this. If I want to control the speed, I can also control the speed. And this is equivalent to 2000 milliseconds. So think of this would be 2 seconds. So you will get the next slide after 2 seconds. So let's go ahead and check if that's actually working. We'll go back, we'll refresh, and we'll wait for 2 seconds. There you go. You can see that the sliders start working now. Yeah. We can make it more interesting. We can go to placeholder.com and then we can take some of the URLs from here. So this is the image. What I'm going to do is inside of a template where we put content, like I said, you can put anything inside of it. I can put an image tag and I can put a source over here. Now if you go back and check and refresh, there you go. You can see that it's created that slider. It's too big actually. Let me make a small one. Let's make it 600. I think that should be good. So let's change this to 600. Let's go back, refresh. You can see our slider is working. I feel that 2 seconds is quite a large amount. Let's change it to 1 second and see what happens. You can see our slider is working, right? So that's how we add the Slick carousel in WordPress. Now there are different things you can do. For example, you can have the arrows and stuff. So the arrow is already present. All you have to do is just style it. So if you go to this button and if you go to, I'm going to stop the slider. Okay, so I'm going to change the autoplay to false just for a second so that we can see. Okay, so now if you see, there's a button here called previous. So the button is this. It says left -25, so left 0. There you go. Can you see it? It's here, right? Just that it's not visible, so let's make it visible. And I'm going to remove the right. I'll put Z index 1. Now it's visible. It was a Z index issue. Right, so can you see there's an arrow? You can increase the width and the height of this. I can do width, height. There we go. Now if you click on it, you can see that the slider is also working. Same way you have the next arrow also, and all you have to do is just add some CSS. So I'll add the CSS later on for that. Z index 1 and right 0. You can see it's there, right? Okay. Cool, so that's that. So please do follow me on GitHub and please give star to my repository like all the beautiful 118 people have. My repository name is Aquila. And do follow me on Twitter as well. My Twitter handle is Codeytek. So I'm going to see you in the next video. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.